Howdy y'all, this is Rational Outlaw, and today I have another video on Hi, I Think I'm Real and Otterface. This is part 3 of the Skeptic School series, and this will be the final part of the series. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, 2, and 2.5, go watch those before you watch this, okay? I'll have the links to those videos down below. Now, I'm gonna mention this again. I have absolutely no problems with Otterface. I think she has some good content. She just was wrong in this case, I believe. And I only now have problems with Hi, I Think I'm Real. The reason for that is because he basically insulted me for making a video on him and a thumbnail of him with a unibrow. Before he started insulting me, I had no problem with him. Anyways, let's get on with the video.
Fifth, we will end all self-esteem programs. In this school, self-esteem will be attained in only one way. The only way self-esteem can be attained, by earning it.
Yeah, but there are children out there, Mr. Prager, who do have self-esteem problems. I do agree that earning things can do wonders for your self-esteem, but what about the teenagers who have very low self-esteem to the point where it might be bordering a mental illness or some kind of problem that holds them back? If you end those programs, don't you think those particular kids might suffer?
Well, according to this one article, self-esteem programs probably aren't even really all that necessary. They don't really know how much self-esteem affects academic performance. It's varied quite a lot from study to study. In fact, there are some studies that say it has no effect on academic performance. But besides that, are self-esteem programs needed in schools? I think they're not. If students are having mental problems, they should be seeing professionals outside of school. And anything that doctor or therapist suggests that the student needs, the school can take into consideration. But for the most part, schools are not there for your child's mental health. If the kid does something there at the school, like say they're going to commit suicide or something like that, then yes, the school should intervene and may need a therapist there on hand or a doctor or whatever it may be. But self-esteem programs, I do not think a school needs those, because those kinds of things can be handled outside of school. The main purpose of a school is to provide a good, safe, and comfortable learning environment.
This is the most confusing component of the list for me. I don't recall there being any kinds of self-esteem programs at any of the schools that I attended before I graduated from high school. There were, however, resources for students like me who were on the verge of nervous breakdowns under the weight of 4 AP classes, sports, extracurriculars, and entrance exams. Counselors would happily sit down with you and make you feel better about yourself so that you wouldn't have a psychotic episode.
Well, here's a helpful tip. Don't do extracurriculars or sports. If you can't handle all of those things, don't spread yourself so thin. And the main purpose of a counselor is to help you figure out what you're going to do if you're going to go to college, or maybe if you're going to get a job or something after high school. That's not to say if the counselor so chooses, they can sit down with the student if they're having a mental breakdown and just sort of calm them down, but that's still not their main job.
Because as much as I appreciate the idea of shifting the focus of our education back to the merit of the individual, if what you mean are the resources that I just mentioned, then I dare you to try and graduate from today's high schools with a healthy grade point average while juggling a full AP schedule, sports, extracurriculars, volunteer work, college applications all at once.
Again, just drop the sports, drop the extracurricular activities, drop the charity work, drop all of that stuff. Your education is the most important if you want to get into a good school. Oh, and I don't think Mr. Prager is saying get rid of counselors.
Sixth and last, I am reorienting the school toward academics and away from politics and propaganda. No more time will be devoted to racism, sexism, Islamophobia, homophobia, global warming, tobacco, or gender identity.
And now I present to you the worst SJWism of the video, folks. Before I get into all that, allow me to explain to you a little bit about the terms that Dennis Prager just listed. The words racism and sexism have not always been the vapid, overused buzzwords that they have been turned into today. Our country alone does have a history of racism and sexism. It is not propaganda to admit that. It is simply an acknowledgement of our country's history.
No Sherlock. I believe Mr. Prager already knows that. Wait, do you actually think Mr. Prager is saying that we shouldn't teach about slavery or the feminist movement or whatever? I think what Mr. Prager is getting at is not so focusing solely on those topics. So much so that where people are saying that we have white privilege or that racism and sexism are just as rampant today as they were 50 years ago.
And global warming isn't a political issue, it's an environmental issue that people made political. And even all those other terms, things that even I rail against, such as Islamophobia and gender identity, should have every right to be presented in the open arena of ideas.
Yes, but global warming, as you just said, has become a political issue. Some teachers are going far beyond the whole science behind it and going straight into the whole political side of it. It's similar to how people have politicized racism and sexism. Instead of just explaining the facts, they're trying to make it all political. The whole point of a school is to teach kids history, science, math, English, not what they should believe politically. Now, if this was a college, then yes, I believe these kinds of topics should be open. But these are high schools, junior highs, and elementaries. They have no need to talk about all these different things. The classroom is for learning, not for politics or social issues.
High schools are places of academia, Dennis, not factories of indoctrination to churn out people who fall in line with your authoritarian worldview.
You actually think he's an authoritarian? You're a moron. Listen here, Buttercup. The whole point of high school is to teach kids math, science, English, history, stuff like that. It also can teach them to respect authority. No one is saying that these kids can't talk about these things. It's just, if it is not relevant to the discussion, there's no reason to talk about it. If you start going off of that stuff, you're getting away from the purpose of schools.
Ideas should not be censored. They should be challenged and scrutinized. And this should be done so openly and fairly. Whatever happened to this video that PragerU published with freaking discount Ansel Elgort talking about the importance of the diversity of ideas? Or this video about preserving freedom of speech? This inconsistency reveals to me that Prager is only interested in the aggrandizement of his own ideas, that's all.
He never said anything about censoring ideas, just that the schools should not be solely focusing on those things. Some schools have gotten away from their purpose, and that purpose is teaching kids. They're actually doing the thing that you think Mr. Prager wants to do, and that is indoctrinate children. How is solely focusing on what the kids are supposed to learn indoctrination?
Prager, there's an awful lot to unpack here, so here we go. What would you deem to be propaganda, and how do we know you're simply not going to inject your own politics and your own propaganda? That's one problem there. And no time at all to racism? I mean, what about history class? I'm sure you're going to be talking about it in history class, right? Jim Crow, slavery, Martin Luther King. But I think talking about racism from a historical perspective is certainly something people should know about, right?
Well, I think when he's talking about propaganda is the kind where they're solely focusing on that issue so much that they're getting past the facts and going straight to discussions on that thing. Like, we could go all day and talk about how slavery was awful, but there's no point in talking about it like that.
This is the issue where people like you tend to become massive social justice warriors, in the sense.
I think we're getting confused on what really is a social justice warrior. From what I know, a social justice warrior is someone who is a radical who's fighting for social justice, to the point where they're actually being racist or sexist or even homophobic. Social justice warriors, from what I know, are pushing issues that are either unimportant or they don't exist. Anyways, that's going to be it for today. If you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe, share it, comment down below and tell me what you thought. Follow me on all my social media like Minds.com, Gab, BitChute, Facebook, Twitter. You can also support me on Maker Support and Patreon. If enough of you guys donate money to me, I can spend more time making videos. So if you have the cash, donate there, and I'll see y'all later.
We